Hey there, everybody. Welcome back with the Plat. Platypus is the name, and today we're playing more Honkai Star Rail, but we're not playing it. We're going to be talking about a drama video. We're going to be ranking the 3 worst characters, in my opinion, in the game. Now, to preface this, well, we're going to have 3 characters and 1 honorable mention, because I'm not sure if the character is bad or not. I think they're really, really bad, but it's kind of hard to tell, but I'm going to give an honorable mention. But also, just because a character makes it on this list doesn't mean that they're bad characters are unusable and they don't have team comps. Like, yes, every character in this game is good and viable. Someone has to be the worst, and so these are the characters that I think are the weakest individually. Even if you have you have to do a lot of extra work to make them good, or have very specific team comps, or a lot of investment to make them good. And without further ado, let's get into it. At number 3, the 3rd worst character in the game, we're going with Hook. And I'm sorry to say this to you, friends. All right, I think Hook's got a big fan base. Hook's a cool character, right? We're an honorary member. I get it. But I think Hook suffers kind of from what a few other there'll be a trend on this, right? What does Hook do? She is a damage dealer. And the issue is her damage is actually kind of not that good, right? Because there's just better damage dealers, even especially in like the fire department. Um, but like her skill does 168%. So you have to use her alt and then use her skill. The alt does like okay damage, but even the enhanced skill, it doesn't really do that much more damage. It does 30% more damage, and you do a little bit of damage AoE, and then you do a little bit of damage over time. And honestly, like on paper, to me, this all sounds good, but when I'm using her, it just like the damage is just ends up being pretty darn low. Kind of no matter what I do. I just haven't been impressed. And on top of that, her traces are just kind of like right? Restoring HP whenever her talent is triggered when attacking enemies with like fire. I mean, the 5 energy is kind of cool, but like the talent's kind of bad. The crowd control debuff is kind of like, what is this? It increases your resistance to it. Like, that's just not that good. This final one is all right. She gets a 20% action forward when she uses her ultimate, but even then, that's still not that good. So overall, I just think she's kind of lackluster in a lot of ways. I think they could boost her numbers a little bit, just make her do more damage, because like her whole thing is like she has an enhanced ability that'll let her do AoE, but she's really like a single target character, right? And even when you do the AoE, it deals fire damage equal to 56% of her attack to adjacent enemies. It doesn't even catch them on fire, right? The burden chance, the 196% with 100% base chance to burn, doesn't actually target the adjacent enemies. So she's really just a single target nuker, but she just doesn't do it that well at the end of the day. Not super impressed with her. All right, and the 2nd worst character, in my opinion, right next, Arlen. I think, again, Arlen is a cool character. I like him a lot. I think Arlen might be the worst character in the game, but maybe not quite. I think he's kind of tied with number 1. And he kind of suffers from the same issue, right? He just is a damage dealer that doesn't do that much damage, right? His highest percentage is 217%, and that's on his ultimate. And then his normal skill is only 144%. And so he has kind of this one, like, he has this mechanic and this caveat kind of thing. Like, it's kind of cool. His skill doesn't take a skill point to use, so he can always use it. It takes max HP. I mean, it doesn't lower his max HP. It takes 15% of his HP as if it was full. And as his HP gets lower, he deals more damage, but it only goes up to 43% damage. And his skill is actually like a really low percentage. Like if we look at like other characters' skills, even though they're not all leveled up super equal, right? Like it's just like one of the lower percentages of skills. And that's because I guess it doesn't take a skill point, but it still does take HP. And yeah, it's going to get stronger with your talent, but even then, even with this maxed out, he's just not doing that much damage. And then you're playing with fire, because then he's at like, 10% HP, sometimes 1 HP literally, and you're just like, he's gonna instantly die to getting tapped by anything. So he has to be almost dead to do equal damage to other characters, while it puts him in danger of just dying. So I think he could use a buff. From my understanding is he was nerfed before the game came out. I'm just not impressed with him overall. But again, let's kind of go into his traces, right? The traces are kind of like pretty bad too. If a current HP percentage is 30% or lower, and you defeat an enemy, immediately restore equal to 20%. Like this is, if this was like when you use your skill, you recovered HP or something, or like when you dealt damage or at least weakness broke an enemy, like this might be good, but you have to kill an enemy to get it to happen to get any kind of healing. Increase resistance to damage over time debuffs, like whatever. And then upon entering battle, if his HP is less than 50%, he can nullify all damage from the first hit received. It's just like all pretty weak, honestly. His numbers just aren't there. And finally, a character that I think is probably the worst in the game, but still maybe worth investing in despite being the worst. But even then, I think probably not. And that's going to be, unfortunately, Herta here. Herta is a very, again, this game has the issue or the benefit of all the characters being cool. But she is incredibly weak damage wise. Like, I will say her normal auto attack does do decent damage. So she's an okay skill generator. If an enemy's below 50%, it does, you know, the attack damage plus an extra 40%. But that's like, that's still not a good damage. Her skill does like 90% AoE damage, which is like whatever. Really, what she's all about is this talent, right? It's that every time an enemy drops below 50%, she does an AoE attack for 28%. And even if you have her thing, it goes up to 78% of her attack to all enemies. Or like whatever, it's like 70 something, maybe 80% attack to all enemies every time an enemy gets below 50%. The thing is, this is just so, she's so weak against single target big boys. It's ridiculous. Now, if there's specific fights with like 5 enemies and you have to kill them all and you have to go after waves and waves of enemies, she could be really good there. And one of the reasons why I said it might be worth building her is because she is good at farming quickly. If you over invest in her, basically she's able to kill waves of enemies very quickly. But I haven't felt like that's actually that useful because the way the system works with the travelers energy or fuel or whatever, like you don't have to do that many. It costs like sometimes 30 a pop to get like some trace materials or something, right? So you don't actually need to do like more than 4 or 5 fights. And she's not like, she doesn't actually help speed it up. She slows it down in that case because she's not strong enough for those fights. So like if you were fighting a bunch of random enemies on auto, she might be kind of good. Like if you're just running around the map and killing random things to get credits and random drops, like she could be pretty good there. But outside of that, I don't see a home for her. Her ultimate is also particularly bad. Like 136% damage to all enemies is just not good. No additional effect, no chance to freeze, no debuff, no anything. It just like, it's kind of, it's a damaging alt, and it's not even that good of a damaging alt. I actually don't remember what her traces are, but let's take a look here. When skill is used, the damage boost effect on target enemies increases by an extra 25%. Like that's okay. Increase the resist crowd control debuffs. Okay. When ultimate is used, deals 20% more damage to frozen enemies, but she has no way to freeze enemies. And even then 20% is like, I mean, that's something like that, but that would be something that would be nice if it was like not the ultimate, right? This is supposed to be the really, really good one on a lot of characters. And then these ones on the left and right are supposed to be a little bit weaker. And if she had something else that was crazy, she's just not that good. I'm sorry. She like in the early game, she's great, but then it ends up feeling like you're just hitting someone with a goddamn wet noodle, no matter what. Even if you get, I got her attack up to like 1500, which is like comparable to like some of my other characters, right? Like even higher than some. And it just like never, she just never does anything. The percentages are just too low as a damage dealer. She's just weak. And that's kind of what I'm highlighting here. In addition, is that low tier damage dealers get outclassed by high star, high tier damage dealers. Now, even if a character is a low star and like they have low stats, but they are utility or support or something, like Natasha can't be in the bottom 3 because she's the second best healer in the game because there's 2 healers in the game, right? And it's like a lot of characters need Natasha because she fills such a critical role and isn't replaceable easily by a lot of characters. Like this is a character that's always good, right? Pella can't be in the bottom 3 because she has an ability to debuff enemies, like a super unique ability. Actually, I don't know how many characters have it off the top of my head, but I think she might be like the one. Removing buffs from enemies, right? And then she also has a way to lower enemies defense, which is cool too. But being able to remove buffs is like really good. Being able to increase the whole team's speed. I think Kinky here is also probably, she might be as bad as Hook, but I had to pick someone for the list. Serval is just like, yeah, she's a damage dealer, but she's so good at AoE. Um, this character is not one of the weakest damage dealers, but not insane. But that's kind of what it comes down to. Characters that are like unique, and like March 7th is actually great, man. Not only does she get to attack a bunch, but her ultimate can freeze, her skill protects people, and it removes a debuff, which could be life-saving, especially in like World 5 of the simulated universe. March 7th is really good in level 5 of the simulated universe. I highly recommend you bring her there. So yeah, like that's kind of what I'm trying to highlight, right? The low star damage dealers are usually not going to be characters you want to heavily invest in if you have other options, but like if you really need a lightning character, you might want to go Arlen. I'd probably go Serval. If you really need a fire character and you don't have Fire Trailblazer, like absolutely Hook is going to be probably your best option if you don't have any of the 5 stars. So I mean, Asta is still good too. She's a good shield breaker, but she doesn't deal that much damage. But in that point, I'd probably still go Asta over Hook, honestly. And then for the honorable mention that I said I was going to talk about, what I think it might be one of the worst characters in the game, but it's kind of hard for me to tell, is I think Destruction Trailblazer is pretty bad. And the reason why this is an honorable mention and not actually on the real list, and the reason I'm less confident about this one, is that because everyone builds this character because it's your MC, right? It's a character you're always going to have. Everyone it's like, and you're so reliant on the physical break early on. It's hard to get a clear idea if this character would be weak if you pulled them way later into the game. But I think the answer would be yes, right? Like doing a 87% AoE is okay. Like I will say his single target here, the 360% is very good. But even like his ultimate isn't insane. His skill is not. His ultimate's pretty good. All right, I'm gonna go back on that one. I do think the ultimate's pretty good, but his attack's pretty bad, right? Just normal attack with no modifiers. The home run hit is not very good at all. His talent is kind of terrible, actually. Each time this character inflicts weakness break, you increase the attack for 2 turns. So you actually have to break something. And now he does have a slight way to self heal 5%. Like that's pretty bad. Crit rate being increased, but they have to already be broken to actually get that effect. And you get to the point where you get a defeat an enemy and it does it, but it's like his technique, which we haven't really talked about, is like pretty terrible. I mean, it's good for like the first few minutes of the game, right? Regenerating energy right away is not very good. Increasing your defense by 10% is not very good. And using skill or ultimate, is increased 25%. That's like okay, but as like an ultimate super cool thing, like if we're comparing it to like some things other characters get, right? He's getting like whenever you get a crit, you get 10% speed for 2 turns, right? You just become fast as fuck. And this one I think allows her her attacks. Well, every time you use a basic attack, she gets 20% movements, progression, which is pretty good. But even then, she has this other one where it's like, I think that's in her Eidolons actually. But even this, like you get full Eidolons on this character, and none of them are very good either. Like, I do think that this character is likely pretty weak, but it's something that everyone's going to build, and I built, and I think everyone is going to keep building because it's just kind of an important part of the roster. And even though I don't think they're that impressive and probably easily replaceable if we get some really good physical 5 stars, I do think that I do think that it's probably kind of an essential part, which is why they're an honorable mention more than anything. Anyway, let me know why you agree. Let me know why you disagree, which I'm sure most of you do. And feel free to yell at me in the comments down below. Anyway, much love. Purplatypus is Purplatypus. I will talk to you guys soon. See you guys in the next video. Peace.